Nothing is ever really unanimous on the internet, so I'm sure there's a group of people who are confident that Subspace Emissary sucked along with the rest of Brawl, but at least in the videos and social circles I've observed, most people think that it was actually pretty awesome. Many were disappointed at the fact that there was no similar mode in Smash 4, especially because of the dumbass reason, and many are hoping that they do a new story mode in Smash 5. I'm part of this latter group. I really liked Brawl back in its days, I had a lot of fun with the game. Currently, being a bit older and not blinded by nostalgia, I can understand the criticism it gets due to the weaknesses of its competitive aspects, but when it comes to the concept and execution of Subspace Emissary, I contend to this day that it's great, and one of the best parts of the entire Smash series. For this video, I wanted to talk about why that is, why so many people love it, mostly for the fun of revisiting the story and exploring my thoughts on it, but also to surface an explanation for those who don't really see it that way. So without further ado, the biggest reason that Subspace Emissary is so liked is its story. Its gameplay is solid, but that comes from the fundamentals of Smash itself. Its fighting mechanics, not something unique to this campaign. It does have unique elements to it that are fun, but they pale in comparison to the story when you think about what really made Subspace memorable. Let's start at the beginning. A huge stadium comes into shot. There's a big crowd waiting to see two famous all-stars go at it in battle. Not much else to it, but right here, in the simple little starting scene, we get a taste of what makes the campaign so enjoyable. What this is a contextualization of the fighting game we've played for years. Though we don't really know anything about this match, like why is it happening exactly? Why are so many people gathering to see it? Why are Peach and Zelda looking on? I mean, I get Peach, but like, why Zelda? Is there something I don't know? Are Zelda and Kirby fucking? I say I hope there's no Rule 34 drawings of that, but you know there is. Anyway, despite all we don't know, it's still a realistic envisioning of what a Smash battle would look like if it was a real competition or tournament. If there was actually a world where all these characters interconnected, it makes it all feel a bit more concrete. And not to get too ahead of myself, but that's the basis of the campaign's whole appeal. Looking at it through the most simplistic lens though, is just fucking fun. It's fun to see Fox jump out of his spaceship inside B. Rayquaza. It's fun to see him flying around attacking the halberd. It's fun to see Ike Great E through the Ancient Minister's bomb while the other two failed. It's fun to see Captain Falcon punch a huge rock for literally no fucking reason and killing a bunch of Pikmin while he's at it. Now you saw the characters have these often comical or exciting interactions and you couldn't help but feel glee in your heart. The thing is, it had been something we'd never experienced before. We got to see cutscenes of Nintendo characters interacting with each other in almost every way, working together, being angry at each other and fighting, heroically saving one another, or just playing a good old dumb gag. There's something inherent about crossovers that just make them instantly satisfying. It's fantasy fulfillment, I guess. We've gotten to know a lot of these characters separately. We've built assessments of their personality, their skills, their strengths and weaknesses, and it leaves an innate desire to know how these traits would play out when paired with those of another character we know from a completely different universe, and they nail it every single time. Not one scene disappoints in that regard. Smash might be the best game possible to have this crossover type story, because besides the attachment we have from the characters' own games, Smash is a fighting game, and it's a sequel. You build connections with the characters you've played with your mains, and not just the ones you were using in Brawl when it came out, but some you've played for years, ever since Melee or even 64. You've associated them with your victories, with the cool combos they could do, with how good it felt every time you watched them pose for the victory screen. For me, it was Falco. He was my main in Melee, and since I played Subspace as soon as I got the game, it was him I was most excited for. I was anxiously waiting for when he was going to show up, wondering with whom he was going to be, and what he was going to do, and it was so fucking awesome when he jumped out of his R-Wing and wrecked the fuck out of Bowser. Like, Bowser had to run away like a bitch. And I'm to think that type of moment happened for mains of almost every character that appeared. Even if their antics weren't as heroic in nature, we all jumped for joy watching our favorite characters express themselves in their own way. It's funny because the main way the story is presented is cutscenes. There is some expression of story in the gameplay, obviously, that's inevitable, but there is a pretty big disconnect between the two for the most part. It doesn't blend together like in, say, Uncharted, for example, where their transitions are seamless, and you'll find yourself playing a lot of these epic action set pieces instead of just watching them. That's where people are tending to land on cutscenes these days. Some outright hate them no matter the usage, which is dumb, but what most people tend to land on is that cutscenes should never be used to replace gameplay. If you have an action scene, it's much more engaging for the player to play it using valid game mechanics. However, cutscenes are still useful in portraying certain things that can't be done in gameplay, usually dialogue scenes, but really any form of interaction between characters that needs a more focused approach and a specific portrayal of the character's expressions and movements. When we consider this, looking at the cutscenes in Subspace, we can see them used well to progress the story and create interesting interactions between characters, all acceptable, but often we have these flashy action moments that, if it was any other game, we'd be upset that we'd have to be watching it instead of playing it. That's rather the problem with fighting games in general. The gameplay is not created to fit well with a narrative. It's not meant to transition seamlessly. It's meant to create a consistent competitive experience that you can play with others. And you can't change the gameplay for the sake of the story. That would rather change the nature of the game. You know, you can't add an R-Wing shooting section, nor can you even add a moment where you kick Bowser's gun up as Falco and shoot it, because to portray that with the same emotional power that you want for the cutscene, it's gonna have to be played differently than regular gameplay, and thus morph the essence of the game. It's not the same as Uncharted, where these spectacular cinematic action sequences are all still functioning with the base mechanics of the game, those being shooting, driving, or climbing. And I'm actually not here to argue this should be tried in Smash. Like I said, I don't think it would work with the base mechanics of the game. Though I agree always trying to make your audience play instead of watch is usually the best way to go, I feel like this is a special exception. I think it's even cooler to portray these actions in cutscenes. Throughout the series, we've seen our characters' fighting strengths in the context of gameplay, but that's all quite abstract. There are things that only exist because of the nature of fighting games, things like frame data and range, which lead into neutral advantages and combo possibilities. However, having fights and action sequences play out in cutscenes gives their strengths as fighters more validation because it's making them real. Like, it's fictional of course, but it's a fictional world where the characters actually interconnect, where the outcomes of these interactions occur uninfluenced by the players, where it's actually them doing the things they're doing, not you. When you beat your friend in versus mode, it's not really blank beating blank, it's you beating your friend using the tool that you most preferred. But these cutscene interactions are as real as they can be. They are what the creators of this world decided the reality was. So Falco, in that moment, beat the shit out of Bowser. And that's what's pretty cool. It gives accolades and merits that become part of who the characters are, reinforcing that idea in your head that they're as badass as you thought they were. Just like the Kirby Mario fight shows a concrete representation of the fighting game, these interactions throughout show a concrete representation of the characters' abilities and overall strength when pitted against other Nintendo characters and monsters, things they'd never faced before. And following that trend, Subspace Emissary as a whole shows a concrete representation of the world of Nintendo. That's the coolest thing about this campaign, that no other Smash game or Nintendo game for that matter has ever had. They made Nintendo Land, a universe where the coolest Nintendo characters existed in unison. It gave the crossover element a whole new level by going beyond just gameplay and actually exploring their unique worlds and personalities overlapping in the midst of facing the Subspace Emissary. It made the world of Smash real. And they made it good. Like, it wasn't just fantasy fulfillment. It was a damn good story. There was character development, there was story progression, there were plot twists, there were emotionally powerful moments, there was mystery. Like, the whole Rob thing was fucking nuts. I was distraught. I was sad as fuck. How the hell did they create such emotion to make me feel so bad about a robot that was a fucking bad guy, like, throughout most of the story? The answer is they built toward that moment, simply with expressions and flashbacks when Robs were about to be sacrificed. And it all comes to fruition when the order to blow up that station is made. And he tries to stop the Robs, he tries to save them, but they're under Ganon's control, so they keep going. And when he pushes them out of the way, they attack him. They attack the one trying to save them, the only being in this universe that cares for them, probably. And all of a sudden, Rob is a character you empathize with and begin to root for in his quest for revenge against Ganondorf and the evils lurking behind the scenes. That's also such a good use of the campaign. As some of you might know, I'm not the biggest fan of adding unknown characters to a game like Smash, but like, how could you not get endeared with Rob's character after that? He was just instantly cooler because they give us a reason to care about him, which already exists with the other characters because of their original games. This is kind of a tangent, but if Sakurai wants to add more unknown characters for the next game, which of course he does, having them play a big role in a campaign would be a good idea. But okay, back to the actual point at hand. Everything really felt like it built upon itself well. Characters first team up just for better odds of survival as they attempt to fulfill their own individual goal, like they each have their own reasons for fighting. Then teams slowly start getting bigger as people meet each other, the intentions of the emissary become clearer and clearer, and they realize they need to stop it all together. It's amazing how they were able to portray all these things effectively and tell this great story without any fucking dialogue. Nobody talks, ever. Yet we can always understand a character's intentions and feelings and what they're saying to their companions based off their animations alone. They have personalities and they're vibrant. They're constant in everything they do. They feel unique and they feel true to what we've always perceived the characters to be. And it must be hard to do that based off actions and animations alone, but they kill it. This is more of a gameplay element, but the way the campaign is presented also works very well to add realism to the world. Instead of just a sequence of named missions, it has a map that shows all the different locations where our characters are. Having the terrain change when bombs explode and having our characters' movements be constantly shown obviously helps to make the physical world feel real and not just something abstract in the creator's head, which often confuses audiences. Now I must point out, I don't think that it's perfect. To say a flaw or three, the end feels a bit rushed with the final parts in the subspace being less cohesive with less cutscenes, the tediousness that was that huge maze, and Sonic appearing out of nowhere literally for no reason. I assume these flaws in the end were due to some sort of time constraint, or they just wanted to wrap it up quick, but I want to mention this to briefly briefly discuss what could be improved. They definitely need to make the final parts feel as fleshed out as the rest, but I actually want to talk more about gameplay here. Now this is something that I have to go more by memory. I didn't play Subspace before making this video, I just watched the cutscenes since I was the main focus. But as far as I can remember, the gameplay really wasn't too complex. You did have these small puzzles in the stages where you needed to switch dimensions to break blocks, or flip switches in different colored areas and remembering what path led where, but when it came to most of the game, it was pretty brain dead. Just run to the right and kill enemies. It was either ridiculously easy, or if you played in the harder difficulties, just frustrating, because the difficulty didn't feel in your control. You got caught a few times by things that just seem unavoidable once you attack, and all of a sudden your character's a hit away from death. I could be wrong, again going by memory, but if a new story mode gets made, it should really take advantage of the amazing fighting game mechanics in Smash. Like have enemies require you to time rolling and dodging precisely, or maneuver through the air at exactly the right places. Have their mechanics be presented to you gradually, so you understand how they work as they get more difficult, and thus you use defense and offense wisely and actually feel a sense of accomplishment when you beat them. And this is exceptionally important for the bosses. Smash bosses ever since Melee have been exactly the same. Try to dodge a move and then hit them while they're in cooldown. That's been it for every single boss in every single game. Maybe you could have smaller bosses that you need to combo like you'd combo any other character, and if you drop the combo then the boss punishes you and you take damage. Have one that sets obstacles you need to jump over and dodge in order to reach them for a hit. Have bosses with weak points that are the only spots that take damage that they always try to protect by facing the opposite direction and hitting you. Or simply, just like with regular enemies, have their attacks be presented gradually, adding on top of each other. It should be patterns with constantly increasing difficulty, so there is a real challenge in dodging and then attacking, but it doesn't feel so stale, nor feel like some bullshit because you got hit by some OP move that there was no way you'd know how to dodge before seeing it. Besides just combat, have platforming sections that are actually difficult and also take advantage of characters' unique movement options, like my stage challenges and shit, and have some memory or spatial reasoning puzzles that work a brain cell or two. Real talk though, as long as the story's as good as it was here and is original, not trying to hit the same beats as Subspace, I really will not complain at all. There is just so much potential to create an amazing experience for us the players if they add another story mode in the next Smash. Because the universe of Nintendo is so huge. There are so many different worlds, so many monsters to have as bosses, so many new characters you could add, and even with the characters already present, having different ones interact with each other in different places in different ways results in endless possibilities for something similarly amazing, and hell, something even better than what Subspace Emissary was. It won't be the easiest thing to do, I'm sure, but since the reason for cutting it last time was supposedly the whole cutscene thing, that means they could have already had an idea, maybe even have the whole thing outlined, but just decided not to put the wheels in motion. If that's true, and this next Smash is Smash 5, there's a good chance they had the time to pull it off. So maybe, just maybe, we're in for some amazing shit this 2018. That's it for this video. I hope you found some common ground with the points I made, but more than anything, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm out. Peace!